really what we want today to be a part of is just kind of talking about missions in our churches and how do we make missions a part of the DNA, and really just that central thread of what we do, what we talk about, how we plan, and how we promote our church. Sean and Brian and I had a conversation yesterday about missionary care partnerships. So we had some good conversation about just the idea of partnering so that you can care for people and really making it central in your church so that it is a focus point. And we also just talked about some of the churches and the responses they have when they do that, and when they make missions a part of their church, and when they're actively doing it, it just strengthens them and gets everybody excited. And so we just wanted to bring people around the table today and see what's going on. So Sean, do you pastor churches down there in Honduras, start churches, work with pastors?
Myself, we're more or less just a supporting arm. We don't try to do like a leadership role. We're more or less, help build buildings, provide teaching, ministering materials. So we just feel like it's important to, support and strengthen the local nationals.
Awesome. And James and Marla, what are the roles that you guys do at your church?
Well, we're part of the missions team at the church. I guess Marla's official role is she's kind of the chairperson, and my role is, I guess, more keeping track of the finances. Since we do have a Faith Promise program at our church where the mission support is raised separate from the church giving. So every year we have a missions emphasis month where we try and bring in either the missionaries or an area of missions that we support to speak to the church, and then ask for, faith promise commitments for the coming year over and above the regular tithing of the church. Do you want more than that, Stephanie? Or
no, that's good. Just wanted to give, we all know you, but Sean didn't, so I wanted to let Sean know kind of where you guys are coming from. And I'll let Wayne and Wayne introduce themselves, so Sean knows who you are and what you guys do.
Yeah, I'm the partnership lead on the team. Stephanie is my daughter. Brian's my son-in-law. Mm-hmm. We have been on the team officially 8 years. And our work is mainly with pastors and helping them develop their clear vision for their ministry strategies. And once that's developed, then we help them put together what we call a MAP, ministry action plan, to help accomplish the vision that God has given them. We also do training with missionaries and a lot of short-term journeys, teaching as needed in those capacities. So we work with churches primarily, but churches and missionaries as needed.
Hi, I'm Wayne Pierce. I run our business side of the Here to There Ministries, keeping us on track using the EOS model, which is a very strategic model of business planning for entrepreneurial type businesses, but we've also adapted that model for our business, which develops our way we do business and keeps us on track, keeps us busy for God in the right way. That way we know that what we are doing is in a godly manner and doing his will. It was interesting. Stephanie, I want to share real quick. I was on a coaching call, getting my feet wet in our AMPed program today with one of our international pastors. And it was amazing to hear him talk about how last week he had a pastors conference that he has once a month there. And he had 20 pastors meeting and strategizing how they're going to go into the villages and spread the gospel. Also, they're even spreading to unreached people groups. So it was really cool to hear this pastor in the field, working on that strategy. And it was really cool to talk about our, the missions as a DNA. And wow, what he's doing there, we could adopt here, just developing meeting with pastors and developing relationships so they can know how to reach their areas and reach the lost. It was really cool.
Great. Well, no, we all kind of sit in different places. Ministry side, church side, missionary side. So the conversation is going to be well-rounded today. I'm loving this. And so kind of just adapt it to your area of ministry. And let's start with vision and strategy. What do you or your leadership team do to prepare or help prepare, plan for missions? So just jump in. Let's all kind of just share today. And then what support or structure do you have for you also to help with missions and care in your churches or in your ministry areas?
One of our core values in the organization is prayer. And in preparation for any vision and strategy development, we always recommend that a lot of time be spent in prayer by both the pastor, a leadership team. If the church has a prayer structure, asking them to pray for God's wisdom and leading in the development of a specific and clear vision and strategy for ministry.
Marla, what do you guys do at Fort Caroline in leadership stuff?
We've been trying to lately bring the missions program more forward, to be more visible, yes. By having a mission of the month. It's in our paperwork that we get. It's also on the screen during the before worship. And there's just different things that we're trying to get the missions to be in front of the people's eyes and ears and their paperwork they took home or the bulletin, just so that they don't forget that we have 9 missions that we support. We also are trying to put more prayer needs from the missionaries in front of them as well, so that they can be praying, not necessarily as a group, but on their own as well when they're at home or wherever. So that's been sort of our push right now, is to try and get missions more visible.
I know, because we work with you guys. Your mission team has been meeting more consistently and praying more and reading books to help you guys strengthen your leadership team so you can do some of these things, which is
right.
I think too, we have, as our missions team has done more praying and reading and studying and meeting, we realized that sort of we needed to move beyond doing what we've always done. And so, we began just praying about it, discussing different ideas, and really became led to want to be directly involved in doing something with an unreached people group. So that really has, I think, motivated our committee, into trying to figure out what it is or how it is best that our church can be involved in that area. And knowing that at the current time, we're really not in a position to be able to just jump in feet first. But praying about it, and trying to understand what it is, how God can use the church. And I think the thing that God has led us to is to become a living link support church, to take risks and become a living link support church for somebody who is planning to go to an unreached people. Amazingly enough, God has opened up a door. And the first thing that comes to mind is we're not ready for this. But I think it became obvious that from our missions committee to the leadership of the church, everybody has said, let's do it. Let's pursue this and see where God is going to take us. And so we have somebody who's interested.
What we thought too is we should just go ahead and pursue, and we've done the praying time, we've done the thinking about it. We hadn't actually been really as far as doing the plan yet. So since there is someone that we're looking at and they're looking at us, we thought even if this does not work out, it's actually showing us how to do this, how to become a living link church for someone and for that person as well. So we feel like even if that wasn't, I think it's God's plan to teach us, to grow us so that we're moving along and not just stationary.
Yeah.
Sounds like God's moving ahead.
Yeah.
Your plan. His timing is always perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, he's moving a little faster than we were, which is unusual because it seemed like usually I'm waiting for answered prayer. And now, well, we started talking about it seriously last summer. So it's been since then, but.
Awesome.
The good thing about that is he won't let you fail.
Sean, I know you sit, excuse me, in the missionary role, but have served in both sides of ministry and business before. What are your thoughts on planning for missions and leadership and support and structure within the church to help you on the field and then also in your ministry? You got any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that's fine. Just to even have the conversation with Pastor Justin Mack, we were talking about, more or less, some of my questions took him back to the beginning of taking that position role at the church. And, and I'll just kind of share with everybody, kind of, bring them up to speed, like what I share with you. I think like 15 years ago, he joined this church. There's about 200 people. They were barely even taking one trip a year. And they really didn't have anything established well within missions. And so he now today they have over 10,000 members. I think he said they have 9 to 10 campuses, and they went from barely taking one mission trip a year to now they take a mission trip a week. I'm not joking when I said that. They take one mission trip a week, and they support over 1,000 missionaries, and they give away over $1 million a month in mission support. And so now these are all their missionaries that they raised up. I think he said they've raised up 150 missionaries of their own, and their goal is to raise up 500 missionaries. So the thing of it is dialing that back to where did this all start? And what he said was the critical component was basically the pastor. I mean, he has a heart for missions. It's not a side hustle. It's not a program. It's not a thought of, just something of the church. It's actually a fabric of the church. It's the existence of the church is missions, global missions. So I, as an individual, would feel as if anything, first and foremost, what is the heartbeat of the pastor? I mean, if you don't have a leader because obviously different churches are structured differently, either the pastor has the voice or an eldership board has a voice. So really, what is the voice of the leadership of the church? Because obviously, if they don't truly have a heart for missions, and missions is just kind of really like a side type thought, like it's another program, like the men's ministry, women's ministry, kids ministry, then really, where's the success of this ministry going to go? So I think that's probably the first and foremost. If a pastor's listening to me, that would be the first and foremost thing that I as a pastor would say, look, do I really have a heart for missions? Does the eldership really even have a heart for missions? Because, if you don't have a heart for missions, you're just not going to really give much of an effort to it. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but.
Yeah, it's part of the vision. How do you prepare? How do you get people on board? Bill, welcome. Glad you're here. I know you guys do a great job. If you want to jump in and share what you guys do over Christian Family Chapel as far as leadership and preparation, any type of structure you guys do. But love to hear from you if you've got anything to contribute to this part before we move on to another area of discussion.
Thank you for welcoming me. I got on the Zoom meeting at 3 o'clock and took me 15 minutes to realize I was on a wrong Zoom meeting, but it was a bunch of mission pastors talking missions.
Hey, all right.
I was like, where's Stephanie? It was the weirdest thing in the world.
What Zoom meeting was that?
I'm not even sure. Kurt Chandler?
All right.
I don't know.
Well, welcome. Glad you're here.
Yeah, no kidding. Glad to be here. Felt like a dummy. I'm here at Christian Family Chapel in Mandarin, and we try to send multiple teams a year. I don't know that we're anything to write a book about. But the things that we want is we want a good site leader. Site leader's mandatory, a really good one. If we're going to take a trip, everything rises and falls with that leader. You get a bad site leader, and if whatever, oh, there's no shovels today and we're supposed to dig or something, and then it's, hey, Satan's really attacking, we don't have shovels. Like, no, you didn't prepare, and so and then our team leader, we need somebody experienced and has good leadership and can take the team. And then as far as preparation, we don't want them just getting on the plane and going, but we usually do 5 or 6 training meetings about trying to get them in a missional mindset. I think of mission trips in 4 different levels. Level 1 is an entry level trip for the first time they ever go on a trip. So the training's certainly more extensive for them. Second one might be a little rougher, maybe in a language that they don't speak. Third one is culturally even harder. And fourth one would be a unique type ministry. Like if we took youth leaders to go train 100 youth leaders overseas, or pastor training, where you're not really expecting any problems on the team. These people have done it before and they're all alumni and ready to go. So the training would be different based on what sort of level trip it is. I like to lead entry level trips. I think they're fun, and I like level 4 trips where we're all hands on deck, ready to go, and we're just going to get there. And from the time we get together, we're thinking, let's minister till the minute we get back.
Good. Good. We're going to, throughout the conversation, we're going to put a couple of resources in the chat for you, a couple of links to things on the network that you guys can get in regards to making missions, the DNA, and making it visual. So when you see those, Brian's going to put them in, just grab them and put them on another document you can get when we're done here. Let's look at communicating. So we get this vision for missions. Sean, great idea, you know, with the pastor being on board. The pastor's the cheerleader, doesn't necessarily have to do it all, but he does talk about it. And he's really key in this and communicating what's happening. And so we want to talk about just different ways you communicate missions at your church, different ways that you visually communicate, you digitally communicate, you talk about it. Where do you talk about it? When do you talk about it? So jump on in. Our questions here are, where have you put up missions visually at your church? Do you have a missions wall? Do you have a time in the slides, welcome slides at your church where you put up missionaries? You know, do that. And then how are you talking about the mission vision in your services online? Where do you plug those in what you're doing? Hey, Daryl, welcome. Glad you're here. Sorry about the mix up with the room, but glad you made it in.
Hello.
Okay. Our personal church, probably over the last year and a half, has really made a concentrated effort to share the vision statement and our purpose statement at the beginning of the sermon every time. It doesn't matter who's preaching. Every time that person gets up, they say, this is why we're here as a church. And then whoever closes out the service almost like commissions us. They remind us again of the mission statement. They make a practical application to it, and then they say you are sent. And that has been really good to hear it over and 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 over again. But after a couple of weeks, everybody started kind of saying it with the pastor. As they would get up, they'd start saying it. This is your church. Our church is advancing, and this is what we're doing. And then at the end, everybody's like, yeah, we are sent. And so now people are joining in with sharing of the vision of the mission and our purpose and our part in the church. So love to hear from you guys where you're talking about missions and how you're sharing it in your churches. Somebody jump in for us.
I think going back to what Sean said, if it's not at the heart of the pastor, and this goes along with what you were saying, Stephanie, it's being voiced every Sunday, then you're going to have difficulty getting missions across to your members. Just having a 1 4-day a year conference, I don't think it's going to cut it. Sean was talking about missions being everything that the church is about, and that goes along with what Here to There teaches, especially in our AMPed program. We talk about the missions being the DNA of the church. I think James coined a phrase that we use: missions is the mission of the church. Everything the church does is about missions. And uh, if it's going to be visual, I think first it's got to be verbal. And it's got to be, the vision has to be verbalized in a clear way. And then to be visually supported on an ongoing basis. When I was growing up, it seemed like we had a missionary and our church supported a lot of missionaries. And just during my young years, I remember 7 families going out as missionaries from that church. But it seemed like every month we were having 2 or 3 missionaries in to speak. And that really etched in my soul the vision and the burden for missions. So I think having missionaries coming in to back up what is being verbalized is critical.
Marla, is that a hand? Marla James? I thought I saw a hand raised,
No,
but go ahead anyway.
Well, I think, you know, I mean, we have been trying to be more intentional at our church. One of the programs we have, we call the 52 Blessings, where we ask every family to bring in a food item every month.
every Sunday.
Oh, every Sunday? Oh, that's right. 52 Blessings. You're right. So every Sunday we ask them to bring in a food item that goes to a food bank in the area of our church. And so there's a constant reminder about, you know, to remember to bring in some food item every week. Now, some people, you know, do it just monthly. They'll bring in 4 or 5 food items at one time, but that's okay. So we use that, as well as another thing that we do every Christmas. We put up a tree that we call the giving tree, and we ask people in the congregation to buy a $25 gift card. And then we collect those gift cards and we send them to it's a children's home down near Tampa, that then they use those gift cards at each of their children's birthdays. And then they have the children create their own thank you card that they send back to the church, and we gather several of those, and then we'll display them on a Sunday and say, you know, here's the card.
On PowerPoint.
Yeah, on PowerPoint, and say, here are the cards that the children sent back in response to you providing a gift card for them. So, you know, those are just some of the ways that we, in addition to, like Marla said earlier, every month is dedicated to a mission, where we put up a slide that has prayer requests and even some facts about that mission as well.
Thanks. Bill, Daryl, doing to communicate mission vision at your churches?
We have a big wall with the TV that has surrounded all our pictures of all our commended missionaries. And on the TV, we feature one of them every week. It's a large, I don't know, 55-inch TV, and we have updated pictures and prayer requests, and or how they can sign up for prayer. The intent is we want our visitors to think, when they're walking off the campus on the first day that they visit, wow, something's different about this church. They talk about missions and they love missions. So one of our frequent slides is Christian Family Chapel loves missions. So they see that, we try to say it. when when somebody becomes a member in our church, they go through a 6-week new members class, and they give me half of one of those classes to go in and say, hey, there's lots of churches to consider. Ours is just one. There's better the churches than ours. But if you join ours, we expect everybody in our church to be involved in missions. And then I explain how they can do that in different ways. And so it is part of our new members DNA. So here's what our DNA is. Try to get a 3-minute mission moment in church once a month where we're featuring a missionary or something. We used to do mission moments where a missionary comes home and we came home and we bought another house and we have another kid, and it's sort of like welcome home. It's almost like a family reunion catch up, but we're at this size now that we try to have dinners and desserts for that happening, for the getting together again for all their family and friends at the church. But when we put them up in church, we really want to hear something that will take our body or some of our body, move them forward or begin a walk in the missionary journey. And then with an action point, here's what you can do. You can come to a lunch or a dessert. You can do this. You can buy a Bible, a Punjabi Bible for $5 that's going to be given out. So our mission moments in church have now been more strategically inspirational and actionable. So some of the stuff we do.
Thanks. Daryl, you've been at a large church that has missions, and now you're helping in a younger church rebuild missions. How are you guys starting to communicate and talk about missions now in your rebuilding process and kind of rebranding?
So I've been working with the pastor for a while about the value of or instilling the mindset in the church that every single person in that church has a responsibility or an involvement in world missions, and that when you say that, you actually have to give people something to do. You can't just say it and then expect them to find it. And so one of the first steps that we've been working through is the development of a leadership team in the church, because one, the pastor can't do everything, and two, they shouldn't do everything. And something that I found among independent churches is that if the pastor handles all the missions and then the pastor leaves, then the church doesn't know what to do. And so if you give that leadership responsibility to the membership in a leadership role, that leadership group can maintain missions for the church, even in the absence or in the change of a pastor. And so we're working on having a leadership team among the laymen of the church. But then something that I've been doing to building up towards that is the development of a fairly in-depth class, trying to take people much deeper in what's going on in the world and how we're involved in it.
Yeah.
And just trying to begin to build in them, because like most churches, they think that missions is handled by missionaries and agencies, and the church just pays the bill. And they need to understand there's far more to it than that, and God wants the church involved in every aspect of it.
Yeah, this is great. Sean, have you been in any churches where they get a 10 for communicating vision or mission and talking about it regularly in any of the churches that you guys have worked with or been a part of?
I mean, the church we've been a part of for the last 30 years, I mean, it's definitely known as a missions church. I mean, you can, like, the gentleman said, walk on campus. You can you can tell it's a mission church because we got flags from the nations all in front of our church. You walk in, you can see the photos of the missionaries and so forth. And then the constant trips that mission teams that go out. I mean, there's been years that we've taken 16 trips in 1 year. So definitely active as far as in that sense. They definitely highlight missions once a month in the service. That's probably pretty much that I have seen as far as in my home church. As far as my mother-in-law's church, they support us as well. I mean, they're very active in, trying to partner with the missionary. I sent you that kind of the layout of the missionary care program that this gentleman that I've been talking to about. And one of the keys is having somebody in stateside as your supporter, as your voice. So my mother-in-law's church they're very open about permitting that to take place within meaning the church is over with, you walk down the hallway and there's a lady there. She's, the kids in Africa made some beautiful like butterflies or whatever, artistic things, like 50 to 100 of them. And then, you can donate to that ministry and then you get handcrafted artwork from the kids. So, I mean, those are just some things that I can see, because I think the main thing is not directly, but indirectly in a way of just kind of layering missions within the church to where every corner you turn, you can kind of just say, oh, missions. So it's missions in the children's ministries, missions within the youth ministries, missions being talked about in the young adults ministry. So to me, I think it's being intentional and then saying, what can we do to bring missions in all areas of our church and to just constantly bring awareness, and then having people being actively involved. Just like the other gentleman was saying, it's not just the pastor, hey, it's the pastor's job or it's that missionary's job. It's not our job. No, it's really the whole church's job to be involved in missions, some form or fashion, but it's trying to identify what roles can be taken in the church so people can fulfill those roles. Because I think once people are more actively involved, engaging in missions, you're going to have a missions church. But if you're not intentional about getting people actively involved in missions, you're not going to have a missions church. It's just going to be something that you talk about, and then in 3 months, it's just going to die and go by the wayside.
Yeah. Communicating it, getting it everywhere, which we're going to talk about in just a second, is huge. And now we have so many different areas. You've got the physical parts of your church. Now you've got the digital parts, social media, your print materials, your digital materials, all the different classes, making sure that everyone is connected and communicating. Brian's going to put another link in the chat here of a resource that we've got, Casting Vision. It was an email blast that we sent out a couple weeks ago. So if you're on our mailing list, you might have received it, but wanted to send it back to you. A couple of specific things you can do this weekend to help cast vision in your church. So Daryl mentioned that they got an education program. Sean, you're talking about getting missions to every area of the church. And I want to take a second and kind of focus on age groups and education. What are you doing in those areas? Bill, I know you guys do mission, couple different mission places in your church for children. Daryl, would you share a little bit more about that program you guys are developing there at your church and some of the things that you're doing in that program to help educate your church? If you're talking, you're on mute. Sorry, and we can't hear you.
There we go.
Awesome.
Our church does Sunday school on a rotating quarterly basis. So every quarter they offer a new group of classes. And so like this last quarter, I did a missions class that was well, it's technically 12 weeks, but 1 week was an introduction. The other one was a summary. So really it was 10 weeks of information. And so we did the first week, which is the most important week, is getting the full Bible scope of missions, and actually probably spent 90% of that time in the Old Testament, because most people don't even realize, most pastors don't spend enough time in the Old Testament. And so there's a lot of missions in that. So we spent a week on that. We did a week on what most of us would refer to calling, but that's heavily misunderstood. We talked about that. We talked about when we send out or we partner with people. We talked about strategy. We talked about the imbalance of where we're sending people, but yet that differs from where the greatest least access to the gospel is. And so figuring that out. We spent 3 whole weeks on how to involve the membership, everybody, in sending out or being good senders. We spent a week talking about Islam, because that's, there's a lot of need to understand, not only within our own country, but as we increasingly partner with people in the Islamic world, we need to know more about Islam. We spent a week talking about the real life of a missionary, and not just what we hear in a 15 or 30-minute presentation when they come home. We got way deeper into what life is really like. We talked about the value of international workers, because there's some places in the world we can't send people. So we need to partner with people that already live there. And then we spent a week talking about the heavy involvement of the local church from this side, even to the point of leadership. So there was tons of light bulb moments where people didn't realize, just because they've never heard a lot of these things before. And so it was really encouraging to see the growth develop as we begin to work in a new direction.
I love seeing you guys take these intentional times of teaching. That's great. I love that you guys spend so much time on it. Bill, you want to share a little bit about what the children's focus and move it on up to the youth? We got to meet with Bill last week, and so heard some from him.
Yeah, I'll divide it, I guess, in the children's junior high, senior high, and college. Our children's ministry, we do a conference for them every year. And then we have a children's missionary library, a room dedicated. It has all these books we lend out. If they read all of the missionary biographies, those little YWAM booklets, we take them to Legoland. It's down near Disney World in Orlando. And so they work hard, read 40 or 50 books, and they get a free trip with some church leaders to Legoland for a day. In middle school ministry, it's part of our scope and sequence, where we'll do a 4-week series in their 3 years on the Great Commission. And then we take our students maybe every other year. Like we took 50 a couple of weeks ago up to Waxhaw, North Carolina, and Wycliffe has a
Jars.
Yeah, Jars. They have a village there. Jungle Jump Off is what it used to be called. It's now called Cross Venture, but you live in a village setting where you live in huts and you cook over wood stoves, and everything you do from the moment you wake up to when you go to bed for a week is all about missions. Very, very great experience, especially for $80 for a week. You just can't, I don't know why every church doesn't do it. You know, it's fun staying out. You got to be a camper, but all that goes with it. That's great. My wife goes, our whole family goes. In senior high, we start saying it's time to get on an airplane. Well, let me back up. Sometimes in middle school, we'll do what's called a family mission trip. I was a middle school pastor, and they told us, do not take middle school students out of the country. And I pushed back on that for a while. And finally, I came up with the idea, what if every middle school student brought a parent? And they said, oh, that'd be great. So we started taking them to Peru, any middle school student could come, but they had to bring at least one parent, and they could bring the whole family if they wanted. And the unexpected surprise of that was usually when students go on mission trips, they come home, there's a shelf life of their excitement, and it lasts until they get to their bedroom. And once they get to their bedroom, it's usually diminishing fast, all that happened on that trip. And so, but you take the mom or dad or both, when it comes home, they make coffee table books, photo albums and stuff. And years later, they're so, you remember when we went to Peru and we were sharing the gospel? And so we didn't expect that result, but the lasting fruit is so much better when the parents come. High school, we let them start going. We sent them to the Philippines to share the gospel in schools there. And so we usually send a bunch of high school students each year. We haven't recently because of COVID, but hopefully they'll open up soon. And then college ministry, of course, they're all involved in the church conferences throughout the year, but college ministry is maybe doing more extreme mission trips and backpacking and stuff like that farther away. So that's some of the stuff we do.
Yeah, I love that you do it early and you do it intentionally, that it's part of the expectation in that membership class. Yep, this is who we are, this is what we do. Our church gave us a visa or a passport application when we went to the new members introduction class. You know, it was just kind of a expectation of we do missions. There's a large church here in our area that they'd say, you know, if you don't go on a mission trip within the first 3 years of your time here, you probably need to go to a different church because this is what we're about. And so I like that they make it pretty clear. Yeah, Sean, I see that.
Yeah, I wanted to add some because Bill, he brings up a lot of good stuff. I like what he's saying. So there's this organization called Culture Link. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of them, but they're out of Atlanta, and they developed this missions. Just a second. They developed these short-term team manuals, and you know, I mean, we've hosted. I can't even count how many short-term teams we've hosted here, and I tell you, these are some of the best written manuals on how to take short-term teams. And the whole idea is that a short-term team is not just for people to go and experience, and you know, maybe they'll start giving to missions, maybe they'll become missionaries or whatever. These manuals are designed to create a life of missions. I mean, just basically the whole entire thing from the start to the finish is basically to walk the individual into creating a lifetime of missions in their heart. What, you know, they may not be full-time missionaries, but just creating that lifetime missions in their heart. And then there's a software program called Service Reef. It's an absolutely incredible software program where literally you can get your church to engage in local mobilization as well as international mobilization. And sorry about that. But basically, it's a international mobilization tool that literally you walk them through that short-term team process. But once they get back on ground, you continue to walk them through a lifetime mentality of global missions. Literally, it's a software program that you use to stay engaged with those that took that trip. So, you know, like you and I were talking about yesterday, you know, I'm not saying this is a right example, but it's kind of an example. Is like with me in social media, you know, I mean, I am extremely rigid and intentional about social media and how active I am on social media. I'm not talking about taking selfies and look at me, look at the pizza I'm eating tonight. I'm talking about missions, you know, how intentional I am about missions. You know, how am I scheduling out posts? How am I encouraging people to be a part of missions? So I think it's the same thing. When you have somebody that's captivated, that went on a missions trip, the worst thing that you could do is not to properly debrief them, and then how to unpack that for them once they get back on ground, and then how they can utilize that for a lifetime. So I think short-term trips are some of the best ways to produce in people's hearts of lifetime missions if it's done properly.
Yeah. Will you put the name of those ministries in the chat so we can have
Oh,
them
yeah.
down? I think that's great. I want to move just to our last area here. Brian's also going to put a link in there. We did an interview with pastor and his wife, actually from the Roanoke area, Daryl, and they did missions, mission corners, mission station. And it was a room in their church, kind of their children's area. And every Sunday, the students would go through. So once a month, each age group was going through and they were talking about what does a missionary do? Then they move into where the people groups they were serving were and learning about the culture and things like that. Excellent interview. They've done a progression like Bill was talking about at Christian Family Chapel. They then moved it into some outdoor education experiences, some trainings. And so just another great example of putting it in the different areas of the church and educating there. We've talked about some great wins and great things that we've done, but I also want to talk about maybe some hurdles in these areas or some challenges you're facing in these areas. And what I want to do is really just kind of share one or two of them. And I want to take some time to pray for us as a group and what we're facing. So if you're facing a challenge in the hurdle in the or a hurdle in the vision area, or maybe communicating your vision, or just education for your church, I'd love to hear from you, just so that we can pray for you and maybe encourage you in this process as well. This is everybody's favorite part, so don't everybody go at once.
So I had, before we did this last class, and of course, unfortunately, we didn't have a lot show up in spite of this announcement, but I asked the pastor that was making the announcement about the Sunday school classes to tell people when they were talking about the missions class coming up, that it was for everybody in the church, not just for people that felt a call to go somewhere, because I think that's one of the big hurdles is, well, several things. One, that people think that only those that are called should get really excited about missions. And then I think a lot of people are scared away from taking classes or learning about missions because they're scared to death that if they do, they're going to get called and they don't want to go somewhere. And so I think trying to educate people, first of all, that missions is the responsibility of everybody, and the call to send is just as valuable as the call to go somewhere. It's just a matter of it's teamwork. One does one thing, the senders do something else, but all of them are important. Therefore, you shouldn't be scared away from being involved in missions. And I just think that a lot of people are scared away from wanting to know more about missions because they're afraid they might get called to go somewhere.
To the deepest, darkest jungles of Africa.
On that point,
No electricity and running water. Yeah, the calling, the realistic part of it is true. I think we all have a lot of misconceptions or fears based on that. Thanks, Daryl.
yeah, on that point, going back to something that Sean had said earlier, if we present missions as the DNA of the church, missions isn't just about a line item in the budget or about a bunch of people who are doing the work that we're funding across the ocean, but missions is also what we ourselves are doing in our own communities, in our own neighborhoods. When you put it in that light, then maybe that fear will be a little lessened when we include the JJS and not just the uttermost, but what are we doing in our own Jerusalem? What are we doing in our own Judea, in our own Samaria, and not just the uttermost, but Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria are all a part of the vision for missions and should be in our churches. I think the more we include those aspects, the greater that fear will be lessened when people realize, oh, they're gonna help me be better at talking to people in my own community or in my workplace. So
Yeah, it's both local and global, and we want to help you do both local and global. Yeah,
yeah.
help you do the thing God's called you to do.
Waiting for somebody else. We were in a church in Myrtle Beach a few weeks ago. And in one of their lobbies, they used this JJSU concept. And they had a booth set up for each of the letters in their Acts 1:8 vision. They had a Jerusalem booth set up, and people were manning that booth, and they had all kind of display as to what their church was doing. And there were people there recruiting as folks were going in church and coming out of church. People were being recruited. Hey, come be a part of this part of our mission, this part of our vision. And it was very interesting. I took pictures. I hadn't seen that done quite like that before, but they were verbal, they were visual, and they were all inclusive. I thought that was a really good missions idea that they had there.
What hurdles are you guys dealing with right now in your areas of missions? Not just these, could be other areas that you've got hurdles. We've got our monthly amped cohort has several international pastors that are a part of the group. And so we're grateful to have them. That's one of our goals. We want to have international partners that we work with as trainers and leaders. And the communication with them is it takes a lot more effort. And thinking through what do they mean? What do they say? Are they understanding clearly what I'm saying and what we're meaning? And so having to spend a little bit more time with them can be a challenge, you know, for us who come from the same context and same language. We can just understand and imply a lot of things. And so communicating for us has been a little bit of a challenge, and getting them all in the same space at the same time so that we can talk about them together has also been a challenge for us as well.
Yeah, one of the challenges from one of our international pastors is just getting to the other areas to minister to their church plants and some of their other pastors in the region. And as he was sharing with me today, to get from one town to the other, they have to go through a forest. And he was sharing with me, going through that forest is sometimes sketchy when they're on two wheels. And of course, he had to explain to me that they're on motorcycles to go there because of it's a lot more economical. Some of the other challenges out in the villages is they meet under trees. They don't have tents. They're not able to go to houses, you know. And so just hearing those struggles, well, you know, we're so blessed that we can, you know, have a 55-inch TV, as Bill shared, you know, sharing all of that. And here they are meeting under a tree, not even having a tent. And it just humbles me when I walk through this process with these pastors in other countries, and how just as we're reading this, our team is, one of the things our team does is we read books together. And as we were reading this week about sending, and we were learning how in North America, we have one pastor for every 759 people. And in the Muslim communities and in some of the other communities, and even in the tribal areas, they have one pastor for tens and in some places hundreds of thousands. So, you know, it really humbles us, not only like Stephanie said, to get on in the right time zone to communicate. It also humbles us to when we understand what our struggles are pale in comparison to what their struggles are.
If I was to say what we're going on, and if you were going to remember and pray, we're changing our mission team from a team of workers and a team of, they probably wouldn't like this name, but they really are a think tank. And we're moving them to a team of coordinators where everybody's gonna, each person on the mission team is going to coordinate a group of workers for a different area of missions in our church. And so, you know, change isn't always fun. Just sort of the new aspect of leadership. So we introduced it back in February, and we're hope it's fully implemented by June. And so we'll see what speed bumps that takes us. But I'm all about making workers coordinators and then getting new workers underneath them. So we have like 9 different areas that we're going to have teams coordinating for our church. But, you know, the prayer is transitions. Sometimes they sting. Sometimes people's feelings get hurt, and hate for Satan to get a foothold in something we're trying to do that's good.
Wayne Pierce, will you close us in, well, praying for these challenges as we kind of finish part of our discussion today, the fear and the misconceptions of missions, the idea that everyone can be a missionary, communication, changes to a more engaging and active equipping role for them. Please.
All right, let's go to God in prayer together. Lord, we thank you for this time we've had to share, this time that we've carved out of our day to focus on our specific needs, our specific areas of ministry. God, the joys and the wins that we hear are so encouraging, but God, the struggles are real. Whether it's new ideas, I love the idea of a think tank. My gosh, that just makes a lot of sense to take that mission team and put them in a place of leadership. And that's going to come with challenges because people don't make change. But God, you are the change agent in this, and your spirit is the change agent. So we pray over that church. We pray over Daryl's church and the classes that they have. And God, quicken the hearts and minds of people that they want to learn, that they want to be part of these classes and be willing to put themselves in a place of, shall we say, vulnerability, that they say, I want to know more. I want to learn more. I don't know enough, God. And I ask that you give Daryl that supernatural knowledge and the tools necessary to go throughout that church body and to empower them to do what you have called them to do. We pray for James and Marla there at Fort Caroline, God. And as they're going through some of these transitions, as they're putting up visuals and encouraging their people and encouraging their church to be part of just a simple canned good, God, let's quicken the hearts of the children to say, Mom, Dad, we forgot the canned good today, and lead those families to that mission field. And just as Bill was talking about taking a middle school student and their parents, God, what a great opportunity. What a great home building, and a time of a student and the parent in a very vital time of their life in middle school to go on a mission trip, God, and to share that with their parent, and to that lifelong change in their life, God. God, I ask you to go before each and every one of us, take these tools, take this message and spread it, God, and bring more the next time we meet again. And empower Bill and Daryl and the others to share both in the network and as well as in their churches about you, your goodness and your grace, and what you can give us as we are on mission for you. God, we ask all of these favors in the lovely name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you for joining and contributing to the conversation and sharing about what you guys are doing in your churches. Love to hear how God's using you and the things that he's put in there. Hopefully you picked up a thing or two that you can try out, and some of the resources that we share, that Sean shared in the chat, will be beneficial to you to read through, look through, and maybe find something that will help as you guys are moving forward. We're almost done with April. Can you guys believe that? May is just a couple days around the corner. Our theme for May in the network is engaging and equipping your churches for missions. So we're going to spend a lot of time with some how-tos, how to do this, how to do that, identifying potential and new missionaries, establishing missionary care. We did an interview last week with 2 counselors out of Colorado with Sunscape retreats. They do care retreats for pastors and global workers, and they are taking us through a listening exercise. And so you want to be a part of that. And then we're going to have a chat with a missionary from Go To Nations, and they've launched a new 30-day mission program, and it's longer than a trip, shorter than a 3 to 6 month internship. Just kind of lets you live a little bit longer missions after the team is gone and everything is kind of set up and organized. And so how we can get potential missionaries ready and different ways that we can do that. So plenty of things coming up, and those resources that Brian gave you from this last month on the network. All right, guys, it was so good to have you here today. Thanks for joining the conversation. We'll look forward to talking with you offline and for our next call.